I guess unsurprisingly, it took a lot longer to get to $1 million than anticipated, even though my hope was to get to $1 million in a year. Like everybody says it's going to take 3 times longer. And the thing is, I think even if you have a lot of experience, right, everything will still take longer than you think, right? There's just too many unpredictable factors when it comes to building a company that you have no control over. And a lot of it is just like customer expectations, market conditions, language, all that stuff like takes time to figure out. So I think setting realistic expectations will help you allocate your resources appropriately and prepare yourself mentally so you're not like so discouraged. Welcome to ProfitLed Season 2, our Journey to $1 Million, episode 27, which is our very last episode.
What?
Well, I'm Melissa Kwan, still going to introduce myself, co-founder and CEO of eWebinar and your host, and here with Todd Parmley, eWebinar's COO. Todd, can you believe that this is the very last episode?
Oh, let me repeat myself. What?
I mean, when I was planning this season and the episode topics, which every single one of them felt important at the time, it seemed like this was never going to end. I was like, whoa, this is actually years of content, and we have been recording this for a year.
Yeah, and look at it. It is coming to an end. But I agree with you. It felt like, wait, we're going to cover all of this? But we did it.
Well, in the last episode, we talked about the 9 most important product-led lessons learned, product-led growth lessons learned. And today, we're going to talk about the 12 most shocking surprises on our way to $1 million ARR. So this episode is also based on a viral LinkedIn post, which I will share in the show notes. Way back when LinkedIn still liked me. They don't really anymore. But there was a time when I was a sensation on there.
You were the queen of bootstrapping.
I think I kept that title.
Yeah. You don't lose once you're royalty,
Yeah, but
you don't lose
very little engagement nowadays. But I want to start today's conversation by giving a breakdown of how long it took to bootstrap eWebinar to $1 million ARR since we started March 2019. So March 2019 was when we incorporated the company. So from March 2019 to first dollar made, first revenue was 18 months. And that's when we start counting like our journey to $1 million. So from our first dollar to 20,000 MRR was 14 months. Very, very long, grueling months that get to 20,000. And then 20 to 40,000 was 7 months. And then to add another 20,000 to 60K was another 7 months. And then from 60K to 83K, which is $1 million ARR, was 8 months. So from incorporation to $1 million was 54 months, which is actually 36 months from product launch,
right?
Which is when most companies start counting. So listeners out there, you may have read about companies that get to $1 million ARR in a year. The reason you read about them is because those are outliers. They are not the norm. 36 months to $1 million is actually the median, even for funded companies. I think there was a report that came out by, what is that company? Is it that company that we use? ChartMogul. Yeah, so they do the analytics for MRR, for revenue. So it might feel like you're moving too slow. It always feels like you're moving too slow because there's never enough revenue. I mean, we still feel like we're starting out every day. At least I do. But if you feel like you're moving too slow, you are actually in the right place. This is normal. And nobody talks about the norm because it's not newsworthy. So just remember that. You read about companies that hit $1 million in a year because they are newsworthy.
Which I think personally, I think it's very comforting, right? It's not like, I mean, of course, all of us want to be the superstar or whatever, but I'm perfectly content being normal at a company that's growing consistently.
Well, I was surprised to see the study on like time to $1 million. And I was surprised to see 36 months as the norm, like across all companies, because I thought we were super slow. But it felt slow also because we had 18 months building with nothing before that.
But I think it's important it's like we weren't working full time on building. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's true.
we weren't.
I mean, somebody
So
was, not us.
yeah, well,
We did hire at that time we had 3 full-time, I think,
yeah,
in Vietnam that was doing it. And
yeah.
then me, you, and David were all doing it part-time. So today we've got the 12 most shocking surprises. A lot of these we did talk about in previous episodes where we kind of dove in deep. So this, I guess, is kind of a summary wrap up of everything that we've learned.
Our last episode. Perfect.
Our last episode. So first thing, everything we thought would make a huge impact, like huge revenue impact, did not. So, we got one customer from being top 3 on Product Hunt that I remember diving into in an earlier episode. We got like 18 trials from a newsletter that went out to like 250K people through like an integration partner. Like that was just
Did we
crazy.
pay for that, or that was just
No, we didn't pay for that.
Yeah. Still,
yeah. Luckily, we didn't pay for that. But there were some newsletters we did pay for that went out to anywhere between like 50 to 100,000 people, and we also got very few trials from that.
Right. Yeah.
And then typically like the conversion rate for those things are like 2 to 5%.
Yeah.
But 18 trials from 250K is very, very low. Like we had high hopes on that one. Yeah. And like we spent 7 months on a huge design update and got like 0 lift. I mean, we would have done it anyway, but it was just surprising. Shocking.
Yeah. And we solved one really important problem, which is our mobile experience needed some serious love. But, it's kind of like what we've talked about in previous episodes, which is that people just expect technology to be exceptional. So
yeah. So I think what we learned from that also is like just tailoring expectations. Like when you have enough of these experiences, you learn to like not put so much hope in one basket.
Yeah. Yeah, but we also learned what baskets worked and what didn't. You know what I mean? But it's particularly painful when you really think something's going to move the needle and then it doesn't. So I agree that most of this is around managing your own expectations, but you're never going to learn that till you get beat down.
But it's also like everything matters, especially in the beginning, right? So even if you're not getting those trials, you're getting some content out. Some of that is evergreen. They live on the internet. People see your name over and over. And then eventually they sign up or they tell their friend. Like a lot of this stuff is like billboard on a highway in the beginning, right? It's just building credibility and like making sure that you exist on the internet and like start building mindshare. So I think in hindsight, like it's okay, but it was just discouraging, I guess, at the time. The number 2 is product led is 10 times harder than sales led. So I spent 14 years in startups now, 2 in sales led. My first 2 were in sales led. Product led growth is the hardest nut that I haven't, and I guess we haven't cracked. Like really getting someone to find you on their own, sign up on their own, try the product, get to value, convert on their own, and then continue to pay you.
And then advocate on your behalf.
Yeah. And then advocate on your behalf. Submit a testimonial on any of the review sites, any of the 10 review sites that we take reviews on.
Yeah.
Really, really difficult.
Yeah. It's funny. It's like, I mean, I guess it's true of a lot of different things, but the promise of PLG does sound magical. It sounds like it's like you create this flywheel, magical flywheel that just keeps spinning faster and faster. But it's really challenging to figure out.
But I actually, having lived through 2 sales-led startups, even though I think product-led is 10 times harder than sales-led, I do think a sales-led company is harder to run and harder to grow than a product-led company. Because I'm thinking about this company as a lifestyle. Like I'm not just thinking about this in terms of growth and revenue. So running a bigger team, paying people more, having higher churn for salespeople, like needing to babysit customers who pay you more, and then having a support team kind of like around the clock to manage people that are paying you a lot more, that's a tough business. And I think for a lot of people, either they have no choice or that's the path that they already chose, or they don't attach pain to that process. But for me, because I'm nomadic most of the year and I need my freedom, right? Like I hate work hours. There's a lot of pain that comes with that kind of routine.
Yeah, I think probably it's harder to get things moving, but as you get things moving, those things are more easily sustainable with less effort. Like you don't have to hire more people to manage things as you get momentum, which I guess is the difference. It's much harder to get things moving, but scaling is different. It's not, which we're still figuring it out. But yeah, with a sales led, you're constantly adding in more people and more people in particular as you grow to
Well,
manage
also
the
sales led
customers.
is easier because you can address objections right there. Right. And product led, like people are always changing. You don't know what they're thinking about. You have to guess what they're thinking about. How are they going to use their product? When are they going to advocate for you? They have an objection. You can't handle it right away. Right. But, I really don't think there's like a good and bad business or right or wrong
No.
business, but there's definitely one that is probably more suitable for you and one that you're more excited to get out of bed for in the morning. Number 3, still painful, still live it today. The market wasn't as ripe as we thought, right? So given live webinars have been widely adopted, especially after 2020, we thought automating them would be super easy, like super easy sell. Like who wants to do a live webinar? I did them for years and I hated them. It turns out turning a video into a webinar that's automated on a schedule is not a concept that most people grasp right away, especially not without a demo. Right? I thought that because I live with the pain, like so much that I had to start a company for it because there wasn't a product that did exactly that everybody would feel my pain. So I was delusional on that front. I thought nobody would want to do the same webinar twice. Turns out lots of people want to do the same webinar twice. Maybe one day they won't, but I just thought it would be a much easier sell. And I actually thought that it would take a year to get to $1 million ARR. Like I was one of those people because I read about it a lot. So, yeah, I mean, this one still continues to baffle my mind.
Yeah, I mean, it still baffles me, but I do get it when I really think about it because you do have to have a mental leap to really understand. Because I think people also mistrust the possibility of a solution like ours. They're like, how could automated possibly be as good as live, let alone better than live? Which we have lots of data now to show that it's better in attendance and engagement and watch time and all these other things. But yeah, it's still really painful. People, that's why we don't push people to sign up on our website. We push them to join a demo because that's typically where they have the first aha moment around our product. And we're like, oh, a automated webinar doesn't have to be shitty.
But we continue to be baffled at how many questions we get as people are in the demo. They're like, well, how does this work? I'm like, what do you mean you're in it? But that's our reality. Number 4 is consumers are more discerning and less forgiving than ever before. And I know this because I've had 2 startups before this for a decade. And people are very, very picky. And it doesn't matter how great your product is, how many features you have. Users will find like a fringe case that you can't solve that no one else has solved, by the way.
Yeah. There's nowhere to go that's better or different.
But they will still leave.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how to describe this phenomenon. It's like people just, only people who work in software understand how hard software is. Everyone else just thinks like, why doesn't it just work? Why can't you just add this thing? It's like they have no concept of how hard it is. And also, I guess, I mean, it's ultimately just human nature. We're self-centered. So
Yeah, I mean, it's like also people don't want to pay for anything anymore. Like there's like everything's getting commoditized, right? So, for example, we integrate with Zapier. Everybody does. Zapier is not cheap. if you use it a lot. So once in a while, we'll get someone come in and be like, well, why can't you just integrate with this other thing that's like Zapier, but it's cheaper? Our entire flow, with the integrations that aren't direct integrations, are built around Zapier. And there's a lot of that stuff involved. It's not like we put it in and it started working. So we can't just go out there and build this other thing to replace Zapier because you don't want to pay for it. But they don't understand that.
Yeah. That's also very true. Is that not only did they not understand how hard it is to make software, they also don't understand that means you should pay for it. It's like
it's cheaper for them to pay for something like that than for me to spend the next year
right.
like integrating something, making it perfect, and then having to support that. Right. By the way, it doesn't just go in, right? Nothing just goes in.
Yeah.
There's always support, like new support that goes around something. So I don't know. I think it's just not even like people expect things to work. It's just there's so much choice out there.
Yeah, that's true.
That people feel like, well, if you don't do it, there's got to be someone out there that does it, right? And they're on this perpetual journey to kind of discover the next great thing. And maybe in the end, they don't do anything, but they still leave you.
Yeah, maybe they're just crappy customers. You know what I mean? Like ultimately, if because you may never satisfy that type of person, but there are more and more of them. There's no question. It's become a much harder market to satisfy generally in software.
The fifth thing is the amount of time that we spend on content creation is mind-blowing. Like if you told me 5 years ago that when I started this company that 95% of my time, I'm not even exaggerating, will be spent on content creation, I would not believe you. I'm like, I'm the CEO. Why would I be content creating? What kind of content is there to create? Because I was in 2 sales-led companies, I never did any marketing. I just sold people, cold calling, knocked on their doors, went to conferences, LobbyCon, like talked to people in the lobby, got them to buy my stuff, like just cold email. Like that's what I did. So I didn't understand what product-led meant and what marketing-led meant. But between writing on LinkedIn or blogs and learning backlinks in the beginning, creating templates, customer stories, podcasting, videos, guest posting, web pages, like help articles, workshops, resources, thought leadership, right? Like writing stuff for other people. And now I added on a newsletter, right? Like that amount of time that we spend on content just between me and you is absolutely insane.
Yeah, it is insane. And the truth is it's needed. You know what I mean? It's not like even with AI now, which I will leverage to try to do things more quickly and more efficiently, I still have to spend a lot of time on the type of content that we're writing that really speaks to an expert user. So, I think it's really easy for people to say, yeah, but AI now, which by the way, wasn't a thing when we were doing this, believe it or not. Like even though that's like only a few years ago when we were really working on this, it was really producing garbage then. But even now, like with the promise of AI, and I suppose this could change, but content is the new advertising. It's how people find you.
Well, and it's got to be well written. Otherwise, people bounce pretty quickly.
Yeah, and substantive. Like it has to actually give them value, right? Like there's so much garbage fluff content out there that like maybe gets you traffic, but who cares?
I read this it was like one of those funny Instagram things today that was like, I want AI to do my dishes and like do my laundry. Like, so, I don't need AI to write my articles so I can go do more dishes and do my laundry.
I could get behind that.
Yeah, I think in our lifetime, maybe very soon, we'll see robots doing that stuff. But
yes. Yeah, I should probably start by, what is it called, a Roomba or whatever? I should probably start with that.
The very first robot, yeah. The sixth thing is a single user can cause scaling issues and uncover system flaws. I mean, that was an insane time, like where one user sent so many webinar attendees into his single webinar in 10 days, it was 400 times the average user. And that was back then when we didn't have limitations on our plans. We thought, hey, like streaming is cheap, everything's cheap. Like how many people watch a webinar anyway, right? We can just make all the plans unlimited and it's going to make it seem like our plans are cheap. Turns out there are users out there that are power users, like usually marketers of webinars using it to sell a product, that figured out that actually streaming costs is not cheap if you go to that volume. This company I found is so stupid that they are doing unlimited plans. So I'm gonna leverage it as much as I can, right? So we never imagined a user like this could exist. We were hugely underprepared. And I think I forgot the number, but I think we lost like, I don't know, like $8,000 or something to our streaming service in those short 10 days. And it was also causing, because we have a chat system, it was also causing message delays in other company accounts.
Webinar. Yeah, right. And all of our users, not all of them, but other users of ours. So we actually uncovered two things really, which is that unlimited plans was stupid, right? And that it would come and bite us on the butt. But that also we uncovered that it was uncovered that we couldn't scale from a technical point of view. So we had to, in the end, it was a gift because we were able to solve those two things. But wow, it was painful at the time. And it was like, make it stop.
Yeah. And these are not scenarios that, unless you've launched the business and attract these customers, you can actually guess, right? I mean, after that, we looked at the true cost of an attendee, which we'd never done before. Like, it makes a lot of sense now. Like, of course we would do that, but it's just so minuscule, right? We're talking like 3 or 4 cents or something like that. But it starts to really matter when there's like 100,000 people in a single webinar and they're paying you nothing. By the way, this person paid us nothing. They were on our trials. So we didn't even limit our trials. There's a reason why all the content out there is like, limit your trials so people will upgrade, right? Limit your plans so people will upgrade. We never thought about that.
Yeah, there was a lot we learned with this guy, actually. So
we then limited our trials. We calculated the true cost of an attendee, calculated how many attendees each plan can have so that, for us to break even. And then we made our plan still as compelling as possible based on those limitations. And then because of that, we added add-ons, right? So if people wanted more registrants, more attendees, they could do that, but we don't lose money on them. I just had an email last week from a guy that says, you guys should have unlimited plans. And I'm like, yeah, about that.
yeah, right. Here, let me send you this podcast episode. I mean, this leads us into our next item on our list, right? Which is number 7, which is plan limitations are for not losing money, not just making money.
Yes. So exactly that, right? So because of this one guy, we then had to put in all these limits. And actually, I think now, because I do a report every month, the additional registrants add-on is our highest revenue add-on out of like the 5 that we have. Because also, like, unless you are getting value from a lot of people watching your webinars, you're not going to pump that many people in. And if you are getting value, then you should be paying for it. Like, we are a business, right? Our goal is to make money and sustain and to continue the service and product. Our goal is not for you to spend the least.
Yeah, right.
Some customers will not agree.
And, it's not like our markup is crazy. We, at the very least, we're not losing money now on these customers.
But it also allows us to find power users where their business is established and the amounts we're charging them actually don't matter, right? So our add-on, for context, is $49 a month for an additional 1,000 registrants. So that's not a lot.
No. It's not a lot. And I'm remembering now we actually didn't add limits to our trial until later, even though we sort of realized that we would have to do that. It's like we staunched the bleeding with just basic plan limitations. But then, later we also limited, what you could actually do in our trial, which, we should have done much earlier. But
it was just dev work, right? And that's limiting the trial is another way of limiting your plans, right? Your trial is a plan. And, we had to do that because there were people that were just signing up every 2 weeks with a different email address and they were maximizing it. So why would we do that? Like, we are not a charity. Like, we are a real business. And over time, we've also kind of built in alerts to alert us when someone does do that. But I think what we've done is we consistently lowered the number of registrants that a trial user can have. Like, if you think about it, you don't need a couple thousand registrants in your webinars in the first 2 weeks before you realize, hey, eWebinar is good for me. And the dev work that we were trying to delay was like, we didn't have a mechanism for like the forced upgrade. Like, it just converted after 2 weeks. So we didn't have a mechanism for people to hit upgrade. So everything is just work. Like, obviously it makes a lot of sense, but we're constantly dealing with a wish list of no less than 200 items.
Is it really that short? No, I think it's more. I think it's
I'm ignoring the rest. The eighth one is pricing strategy can be the difference between profit and loss. So this one we also talked about in an earlier episode. I hate this word, but there is no other word. We grandfathered existing customers, like our legacy customers, when we increase prices against the advice of other founders. Like, when we started, we were like $49.99 and like $199. And then a couple years after, when our product caught up and we became, in theory, too cheap for the product that we doubled prices to $99, $199, and $299. And a lot of my peers that have done this was like, you got to rip the Band-Aid off. You can't fix the price. Like, if you want to be profitable, and we weren't at the time, like, you need to raise the price for everyone, especially if you think that your product can justify the ROI because of the price point that we were at. It wasn't like thousands of dollars. And they were saying, hey, like, anyone that sees value in your product that uses it in their business will pay that. And anyone who doesn't want to, they'll be loud, but they will leave anyway because they're way too cost conscious. And I didn't listen to them because at the time, I didn't feel like I was ready to lose the revenue because we weren't profitable. And I felt like we should do, in theory, the right thing. But in the end, if we had raised prices for everybody, we could have added $30,000 a month, like, during that time, to invest towards all the other costs that were also rising. Because more people were using it, there was more platform costs, and we needed to hire more people to upkeep the system.
And how long? I mean, we eventually got rid of grandfathered pricing anyway, right? That was like a year later, right? So $30,000 a month over 12 months.
That's painful. I never thought about it that way. That is painful.
I mean, the thing is like, it does feel like the right thing to do. And also it's like a confidence issue. It's like, is it going to do really people love our product that much? And what we found out is that they did. So it's easy in hindsight, as is, all of this.
Well, the thing is, when we did raise prices for legacy customers, we didn't have additional churn. Like, our churn didn't go up that month, and we made more money. And yeah, a few people were upset about it, and some stayed, but some left anyway. And some were actually happy to pay because they were getting so much value out of it that they didn't feel like they were paying enough. So if you are thinking about raising prices, especially from version 1 prices, consider not grandfathering. And I remember we kind of reserved the right to raise prices. So we specifically, when we had that communication, we didn't use the word grandfathering.
Yeah.
Like, we were very careful about that. We said, like, we would like hold their prices, or like something like that.
Something. Yeah. We were very, like, We're like politicians, you know what I mean? We just either, but in the end, it was just fear of ripping off the Band-Aid and what we might lose.
We would have been profitable right away. Number 9, incremental growth month over month amounts to meaningful revenue. So in the beginning, super easy to grow 10 to 20% month by month, like in the first year, like because amounts were quite low. And then we were growing like 5 to 10%, in the second year. And then in the third year, we're growing 1 to 7%, depending on the month. So it often felt like it was too slow and it was really discouraging. But 36 months later, we're at $1 million. Like if you grow 3 to 5% a month, like that is really significant, right? That's like anywhere from 30 to 50% a year.
Yeah. I mean, people say this slow growth is good growth, right? And it's like, yeah, right. I want fast growth. But I do actually think that it's true, right? It's just a mark of a sustainable business. It's a mark of more loyal customers. Like, it doesn't freak me out as much as it used to that our growth slowed down, as much as it did, because it's still good growth.
Yeah, but you don't feel it, and that's why it's like a shocking surprise, right? You're like, oh, I only grew like 3%. Oh, like next month I grew 5%. It's pretty good. Next month is like 2%, but at the end of the year, you're actually doing pretty good. So number 10, large enterprises couldn't buy from us even if they wanted to. So as we're building credibility, bigger companies were using us. There were even bigger companies that wanted to use us, some public companies. But these companies have compliance requirements and they want to sign contracts. We just have a sign up page, right? They want to invoice net 30. They can't invoice $99 net 30.
Half the time they don't even have a credit card.
Yeah, they don't have a credit card unless you're like, oh, you can't sign up without one. They're like, oh, I found a credit card. If they really, really wanted to. And the thing is, at our price point, somebody could sign up with their personal credit card and expense it, which is sometimes what happens because they don't want to like kind of jump through that red tape. But like a lot of these companies also have like GDPR requirements if they're in Europe, SOC 2 compliance, or security review. Like all these things that are too expensive for startups with a low like average revenue per user. And we were one of those startups. I mean, in the end, like I think maybe just after $1 million, we needed to get all that compliance stuff. We needed to get the SOC 2 done, right? Because it was actually stopping companies from signing up. But it wasn't until we kept hearing it over and over and over that we even considered investing in it, right? Like when we were where we were, we'd just be like, yeah, we're not doing the security review.
Yeah, but I also am really grateful for the experience that you'd had in the past because it's so tempting when a larger company comes along, especially when they have a name of some kind. You're like, oh my God, we got to jump through hoops to get these people. And like, you don't realize the cost that comes with that. It's massive to take on a customer like that. And so as tempting as it is, I was really glad you were around to sort of be like, no.
Well, also like our product starts at $99. If you are a good customer for us, you'd pay us like $500. If you're a great customer, you'd pay us $1,000. But just because your company is big does not mean you're going to have a lot of webinars, which is how we price, right? You could be the biggest company, but only have 2 webinars, which happens. But the way that big companies negotiate is they say, well, I'm going to have a lot of this, so I'm going to use a lot. And when everyone sees me using it, they're going to follow me and sign up with you. There's no such thing as herd mentality in B2B. Like people just sign up at their own cycle. They have their own, they have their own problems they have to solve, right? Like they're not going to sign up because this other guy is a customer, but everyone says that.
Yeah, and most of the time they won't even let you use their logo, right? Let alone give a testimonial.
Especially if it's a public company, you will have no benefit from them. 0. You can't use their logo and they won't do a case study. So it's like there's not even a marketing value. Yeah, but I guess because I'd never built a product that could be used by these companies in the past, like that's why this was a shocking surprise for me. Like previously I was in real estate, none of, like, as big as the companies were, they didn't care about this.
Yeah, that's true. They don't care about that. That's
Yeah.
right.
Like we didn't have EU customers. It was an American-based company, or like
Right.
American-based
Customers.
product
Yeah,
customer base.
yeah.
So, maybe there were security reviews, but not like SOC 2 ones. Like they weren't like 10 pages. So actually now, like when somebody sends us a security review and say it's mandated, I will say that our CTO's time is X dollars an hour. This is going to take X number of hours to fill out. Would you like us to go ahead?
And they usually don't respond to that.
No, nobody responds to that. So the 11th one is you don't need all the fancy metrics to know what to prioritize. And we talked about this in the last episode. The only thing we obsessed over was the voice of customer through support tickets. So through like issues, requests, feedback, suggestions, and our roadmap was designed accordingly to our gut and what we heard.
Yeah. And also you were doing interviews, right? So we were also getting some, feedback in that way as well.
Yeah. But everybody I talked to would say I have to measure stuff. Otherwise, we'd be doing the wrong thing. But the only metric that I obsessed over was Stripe revenue. Like, what is the revenue that we made this month? Is it growing or not? And then I would put that in our projections. I still update our projections once a month. So, like, as long, especially in the early days, as long as you're making money, and then if you're a bootstrap startup, as long as what you're paying out is being covered by your revenue, then you're good. Like, you don't need to measure like how many people clicked on this button or like did they upload a video? Like, not yet. I guess in the beginning, there's so many obvious things you can do to the product to make a huge improvement that you actually don't need to know what people are doing.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember at the very first startup I worked at that I was doing customer support, and my job was to sort of like, because we didn't have a ticketing system, so I think I was doing this this was probably in my obsession with spreadsheets. This is where it started, but I would track, what customers were saying. It was so obvious what we needed to do next. You just had to pay attention. It was not, there was no science to it. There was no analysis. It was like, we have to do this next.
So the 12th thing, the last thing, the biggest surprise, I guess, is that 83,000 a month in revenue is actually not a lot. Like there always seemed to be another expense, another hire, another investment, something else we need to fix, some huge bill we had to pay, right? And we're one of those super capital efficient companies. We outsource everybody, everyone's a contractor, everyone's spread around the world. Myself, Todd and our CTO, everybody was making salary concessions. I didn't even start paying myself actually until way after $1 million. So that was my salary concession. And we were still below break even at that time because everything else would just get paid out. And so I think that everybody thinks about this million as this magic number. And at one time in my life, I thought that was the magic number. Right? It seemed like a lot of money at the time, but for some reason, as your platform grows, like needs just grow. You write more content, someone has to help you write the content. You want to make videos, someone has to help you edit the videos. Right? A lot of people use it. You're going to need a support person.
Yeah, and when you're bootstrapped, your revenue is your funding. You know what I mean? Like, if you're making $1 million ARR, that's the extent of your budget, so to speak. You might have some other capital to draw on, but when you're bootstrapped, like that's what you have. So, it goes quickly.
Yeah, and I think knowing that is important. because I think founders, or maybe everybody does, I don't know, like have a tendency to spend future money, right? Because you're like, well, maybe I'll make this, in 6 months so that I can hire this person. I can just burn a little bit more, but you're going to incur some new expenses along the way, right? Everything is about budgeting. That's why I'm so meticulous about my financial projections and making sure we know like where we are and how much we have to make to cover where we want to go. So I guess to summarize this experience and to wrap up, like, I guess unsurprisingly, it took a lot longer to get to 1 million than anticipated, even though my hope was to get to 1 million in a year. Like everybody says it's going to take 3 times longer. And in this case, it did take 3 times longer because it took 3 years. And the thing is, I think even if you have a lot of experience, right, everything will still take longer than you think, right? There's just too many unpredictable factors when it comes to building a company that you have no control over. And a lot of it is just like customer expectations, market conditions, marketing, language, all that stuff like takes time to figure out. So I think setting realistic expectations will help you allocate your resources appropriately and prepare yourself mentally so you're not like so discouraged because everything is there to discourage you. So ultimately, I think it is going to take a while. It's going to be a slog, but in the end, it will be worth it when you get there. Because even though I say like, hey, like 1 million is not the magic number where you pay off everything, it is a number that says, hey, you actually have a real business. Like you are onto something, even if you're not like fully ready to scale. Like enough people like your company that you've got a real thing going.
Yeah, it's not nothing. It's still a really important milestone, but it's not like you're going to wake up and be surrounded by unicorns after that. Rainbows.
I wish.
One day. So, I mean, this is our final episode of the season. This is sort of a summary today, right? Of we talked about everything from how things we thought that would make an impact didn't. The very things we thought we would make the most impact did not. How much time we spent and still spend on content creation, and how once you get to 1 million ARR, you realize that it's not actually that much money to work with. So of all the things we've talked about, and maybe even over the season, I don't know, but like, what's your final hot take in our final episode?
I think it still has to be this last point we talked about, which is 1 million ARR is not the magic number everybody thinks. And it's like, I keep saying that because it's the number that's on every single piece of content. Like out there, not that I write. Like it's the target that every founder wants to get to. It's the number where they think, oh, I'm ready to scale and someone's going to give me money if I'm raising money, which might be true in that sense. But it does not solve all your problems. When you get there, you uncover a whole slew of other problems along the way.
Absolutely. I mean, my hot take is sort of to add on that the landscape is changing so fast in technology and in business that to expect to be able to sort of wake up and your problems are solved, the goal is to not kind of like achieve some like permanently stable state. It's to address things as they come, and figure things out as you go, because there's no alternative now. You know what I mean? I think that there's so many like kind of magical solutions that sound magical out there. Like PLG can sound magical, affiliate marketing can sound magical, but growing a company is hard, and to expect otherwise, I mean, to a degree is healthy, right? You got to believe you can just do it, but it's just figure it out as you go, be resourceful, rely on your resources. That's really all there is.
Building a company is hard, but there is one thing that makes it easier.
What's that?
Profit.
Oh yeah, right. Isn't that the name of this podcast?
Yeah. And that's how we bring it back around.
That's good. That was artful. the way you
Well,
did that.
thank you for sticking with us through this season. It's been fun to dive into every single one of those topics. And yeah, I think thanks for listening. If you've been enjoying this podcast, I've got a small favor to ask. The only way ProfitLed grows is by word of mouth. So if you'll do us a favor and hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening or watching this podcast right now, it'd mean the world to us and help us continue to spend time making these episodes for you. Ping me on LinkedIn if there are particular topics you want us to get into this season. Send me any feedback you have on this podcast because I love hearing from you. My name is Melissa Kwan, last name spelled Kwan. To get notified of new episodes, join our mailing list by going to ProfitLed.fm. I promise to only share things you'll actually care about. Thanks for listening. Bye now.